Good evening, buenas noches, and thank you for tuning in tonight. On behalf of Mitchell Kaplan, the Miami Book Fair, and all of us at Books and Books, I welcome you to a virtual evening with Rosie Mercado to discuss her new memoir, The Girl with the Self-Esteem Issues, published by our friends at Harper One. The Girl with the Self-Esteem Issues is the remarkable story of Rosie Mercado's journey from helplessness to becoming a model, life coach, and daytime celebrity, and one of the top 25 most powerful Latinas. But as Rosie reveals, the success came after years of pain. Rosie Mercado is a bilingual Latina model, certified life coach, and was a co-host on the talk show Face the Truth, awarded one of the top 25 most powerful Latinas by People en Español, and named one of the top 6 Latinas you should know by Latina magazine. Rosie also guest hosts and is a correspondent on leading Spanish language networks Telemundo and Univision, as well as on the Emmy Award-winning Dr. Phil Show and The Doctors. Rosie's journey, losing 240 pounds as a single mother of 3, was covered everywhere, and her amazing story of embracing authentic beauty against all odds has resonated with hundreds of thousands of English and Spanish-speaking women around the world. Rosie lives in Los Angeles with her husband and 4 children. In conversation with Rosie this evening, we're trying to get Mike Bayer, known to thousands of clients as Coach Mike, on with us. But there have been some issues in Los Angeles where he's based. So let's bring Rosie on the screen. Hey, how are you?
Hey, excited to be here. Everything is as it should be as we take a deep breath and get through the virtual side, the technical side, and just sending so much love to Coach Mike. I know that he's at the studio right now. He's at Paramount Studios, and there's some things that are going on over there that has kept him from being able to connect. But I'm sending him so much love, and hopefully if he's able to connect during this event here, we're here doing the thing and just doing everything that we can, and just excited to be able to connect with everybody that joins in now or joins in later.
Mm-hmm. So I love your attitude. And I just want to say congratulations on this book. And look how beautiful you are. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Gracias.
De nada. Mi placer. So would you like to tell us a little bit about just the journey of the book? Writing the book, getting it published, Can you share with us what that was like?
You know, the journey, I have to say, was definitely a learning experience because there's so much energy that is placed into something that you call yours, your book. It's a memoir, and there's healing energy. There's energy that comes wrapped in, pain with wisdom. There's energy of reflection. There's energy of learning. There's energy of pride. There's just so much that's wrapped into this book. And it's been a journey. It's been about 2.5 years in the process of knocking on doors, manifesting the book, and just really being able to work with an amazing team. From my manager to Harper Collins to Stephanie, just everybody who's been involved in getting this book out. And I think what I'm also excited is that as a Latina, not only is this book in English, but it'll be coming in December out in Spanish. So they've really honored my Latino roots, and it's a way of me paying it forward and also showing respect and love for what my parents have taught me, those values. So I'm just excited to share everything that I've learned on the journey. And
how did there he is. Hey!
I think we got it. I can't hear you guys.
Well, if you can't hear us, that's
I could.
Okay. Can you? Yes.
No. Sound now is not
working.
I'm
gonna close you out again and try bringing you up
muted.
Again. Yep. Let's try it. So maybe keep telling us, how did you get up the courage to start writing it, and how hard was it? To do? Did you work on it consistently?
Yeah, so I definitely worked with a team, definitely consistently, definitely going through the process of a book and working with the team on the book. It is consistent work. It's day in, day out. And I think the most important part of this book is walking in authenticity and having the courage to tell my story as is and really come from a place of understanding everything that I've gone through and share as much information as possible with the reader and the lessons that I've learned throughout the process.
Can you hear us now, Coach Mike? No, it looks like he still can't. Okay, well, let's keep going.
Okay.
So when I know it's very hard to write memoirs, and I have read about the process sometimes making you even ill as you're doing it, because you have to remember so many things in your life and kind of relive them.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit with us?
I think, thankfully I didn't get sick, but what I did find out about myself, there was a lot of things that I suppressed that I'm like, I can't believe I went through that. When going through the process of the book, all of a sudden, all these memories, all these painful moments that I had suppressed and kind of just pushed back, and I had gone forward, moved forward and into reaching new doors and new windows. And I just remember there was moments that aha moments that I'm like, I went through that, and I remember, and then it started like the smells and the pain and the words said, and just those emotions started kind of surfacing. And I have to be thankful for that, because it allowed me to really put into perspective the things that I had gone through, the moments throughout the years. I mean, since the age, since I was younger, from going all the way back into the age of 9 and 10, and remember how people would bully me and the things that they would say, and just remember the moment, how I felt in that moment of innocence, not knowing how to react. And understanding now that I wish, what would I tell my, when I was 9? What would I tell myself when I was 15? What would I tell myself when I was 19? Feeling just like not having that power in my voice to stand up for myself. And I think there's just so many revelations and learning lessons that even today, as I go through the book, and I'm like, wow, I know there's a process to everything, and I know there's a learning lesson to everything, but sometimes we don't get it in that moment, and it's so painful.
Well, you can bring so much inspiration to other women, Latinas, who are going through this experience, because, we all know how hard it is to grow up and to try to live up to some of these, these expectations and the things, and how people consider beauty. I think some of that is changing now. Thank goodness.
It's changing. And
what you did is I can.
Woo.
I mean, you just took a breath, and that's what it is. It's
like I look back. I mean, don't you ever look at pictures? And this is what I find crazy. Just as women, do you guys ever look back at your pictures from 20 years ago, and you're like, what was I thinking? I wasn't even that big. Or like, oh my God, at that age, I felt like I looked so old, and I felt so tired, and I felt so ugly. And you look back, and what was my mentality? You go back into that state, and you start wondering, wow, I must have been in such a dark place to look at myself. Because now that I go back, I look at myself, I'm like, wow, why didn't you own your curves? It was okay that you stood out. Why didn't you own everything? You were on radio. Why didn't you have these prideful moments? And it's I look back.
We weren't allowed to at that time. I think things are changing to the point where now, body shaming is just not cool. So many paradigms are just falling apart and being reinvented. Thank goodness. Coach Mike, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you guys hear me? Man, let me tell you what
you made. Oh my God.
First of all, let me tell you, I would say that the last 15 minutes have been the man with the self-esteem issues trying to log into this. So, I mean, I love you, Rosie, and
I love you.
And I'm very excited, and anyone who's just logging on, very sorry for this. There was a shooting over at CBS, and so it's been really chaotic. But we good to get into it?
Yes. So I'm going to let you guys get going, and I'm going to disappear, but I'll be here to maybe help facilitate any questions from the audience or anything you need at all.
Okay, great.
Coach Mike, you guys, I love him so much. I'm so excited to be chatting with you. Thank you for making every effort possible, because these are the moments where we're presented with these opportunities that whether we commit to moving forward, or we could just say, it's too much work, I'm just not going to even do it or deal with it. So thank you so much for trying. I appreciate that. Thank you. That means a lot to me. That really does.
Absolutely. I'm really excited for this book. Um, I told you that I just think that the title and just your story is not only inspirational, but it also really is helpful to other people. So I think right now is such a good time for your message to get out. So any way that I could be a part of helping that message, I'm honored and I love it. So
Thank you. You know, it's so crazy that we talk about self-esteem issues because I think regardless of the age that we have or ethnic background or the way that we brought up, or regardless what type of parents that we had, whether they were incredibly loving like my parents were, or if they weren't present, just regardless of the past, I just really feel that self-esteem hits us in different ways, whether it's our career, whether it's our dating, whether it's our, emotional connections, whether it's our friendships, whether it's, just who we are as people, who we become, whether we're prideful of who we become or just ashamed of certain areas of our life or past failures that we keep holding on so tightly that doesn't let us move forward. I just feel like everyone, whether a man or a woman, we all deal at some point with self-esteem issues. And there are just moments that I think now more than ever, just walking in authenticity and being able to share the story of what I've been through and just letting it all out and just saying, look, I'm a woman and I have learned so much from my mistakes, from the things that people have done to me that I don't take any personal responsibility, but it took me so long to get here. And finally, I'm 40 years old and it's taken how many years for me just to work on myself and learn and understand my triggers and just be grateful for the lessons and be able, I can now look at the pain that I went through as what was a lesson to be taught and what did I have to learn and what growing did I have to do. And I feel that it's an everyday journey. It's an everyday journey.
yeah, and it's something that isn't talked about enough. It's talked about only when it's so bad, right? But then, it's not cool to have, low self-esteem or to be struggling with it. And I think you do a really good job of telling the story of how you perceive, self-esteem and what happened to you. How much of that, because you shared different stories, what made you choose which ones to put in?
I think it was important for me to put the most painful ones in there because they were the ones that at some point in my life were the ones that I was most ashamed of.
Mm-hmm.
They were the most ashamed of because if it was culturally or just as a woman being married and divorced that many times, you just don't say that because if you dare say that at the wrong time, number one, back in the day, like if I said that, several years ago, the story that I would tell myself is nobody was going to love me. They were going to be like, what's wrong with you? Second, you say that you're married and divorced that many times. That means that you're never like, once you're married and divorced, like forget it. Nobody wants to deal with anybody who's been married and divorced as many times. And I feel like I'm not the only one in the world that has dealt with issues when it comes to relationships. And it wasn't that I've always said, nobody wants to get married to get divorced. Nobody gets into a relationship to end up either getting their heart broken or just being in a toxic relationship. You get in a relationship because you want to love and you want to be loved. That is just the truth for everyone. And sometimes time goes by and you end up feeling lonely. And then you end up, because of the loneliness, you're like, whoever gives me attention, you don't say it verbally, but you get that little attention that sparks something inside of you. You're like, okay, I love the attention. I'll let go the red flag. This is nice to have because I haven't had it for so many years. It's so nice to be able to have a conversation with someone that you end up giving it a different story, that you're in love with this person and you're invested in this person who's not invested in the same way as you are. And you end up receiving pain and allowing pain in your life by avoiding those red flags. So I just thought when it comes to relationships, I'm going to just put it all out there, regardless of what people think. I just want to share it because I know lots of people are holding on to pain. They're dealing with shame when it comes to relationships, getting their heart broken, or they're dealing with deep depression because they don't know how to get out of a relationship that's full of physical and emotional abuse. And I hid it for so long. My parents didn't know that I was going through it because every time they saw a bruise on my body, I would give it a different story because I didn't want anybody to know, number one. Two, I was afraid of them knowing. And three, I did not want to worry my parents. I was already how many relationships into it. And I was told like, hey, again, like every single time I'd get divorced, and not by my family, just everybody else. Again, you're divorced again. Did you not learn the first time? And that for me was how I chose it. I said, someone will relate to this. And it's about taking the shame out of the past and just really stepping into it, saying, you know what, regardless of what people criticize, what was the lesson for me and who can this help? And I just want to be an invitation to help and inspire. Take the shame out of it. What can you learn?
Yeah.
How can you become stronger?
Well, yeah. And I think there's this illusion that somehow that you talk about, that as if everyone's going to find someone and be married for 60 years and meet them in high school. And it's just such a crazy fairy tale. Sure that happens, but it's very rare.
I mean, and if it happened for you, that's fantastic. I applaud you. But you know what? I was raised, and everybody always asks, like, what kind of parents did you have? Look, it's not my parents' fault. My parents did an amazing, I saw my parents, they've been married for over 40 years, loving relationship, powerful couple, business together, super family oriented, spiritually led, really, really strong values. Like, my parents have always been there. They've always, been behind me and have always lifted me up through the darkest moments. So I'm very grateful to have the parents. So it's not, as a parent, you could do everything that you want for your kids, but your kids will make their own decisions based off of their self-esteem, their own values. Like, all you can do is, like, they're out in the world and just be there to lift them up when they fall and cheer them on when they do something amazing. And if you're not married by the age of 40, that's not your story. You can't compare your life to someone else. And if you've gotten, several divorces like I have by the age of 40, I don't have everybody else's story. I had lessons that I had to learn. So I'm taking the shame out of it and saying, look, I wanted love. I had to do the inner healing. That has to happen first. And then life will mirror back and you'll attract someone that you absolutely will fall in love with, because I did. But it took me how many years of self-work? Like, you have to do that inner work. And I'm just here to give hope, take the shame out and say, look, everything happens in your own timing. Be patient. Discover yourself. In the meantime, go through self-discovery. Get to know who you are.
Mm-hmm. You have a sign behind your head that says, my ass is a gift.
Yes. My ass is a gift. So that is one of my favorite quotes in the book, because growing up, ever since the age of 8 or 9, everybody made fun of my ass, my hips. They called me fat ass. They called me hippo. They called me so many names. And when I was working on this book, one of the things that I love talking to the team about is, who was this book going to be for? And the emotions that I felt fat. I felt isolated. I felt unworthy of. I felt ashamed. I felt like I didn't fit in. I always covered my body up. I just felt that my voice didn't matter, and that there was always something about me that I was picking at, because at a very young age, everybody picked on me because of the size of my hips and my butt. And I grew up with such a huge insecurity around my body that it showed throughout the years. It showed even going into relationships. Like, I was constantly told that I was fat, that nobody would ever love me. And you're told that so much. And when you don't know, you start accepting that story as your truth. And then you start letting it guide your life, and you make decisions based off of that truth. That was not my truth. So now my truth is, my big ass is a gift. And you know what? It's taken me to some amazing places, and no longer am I going to nitpick at my body in such a negative way and let that be a guiding point. No more. Like, we do not come, like, we all come in different shapes and sizes, and we should celebrate those differences, because it's what makes us beautiful and unique. It really is.
And you're saying, when you were thinking about the reader, right? The reader, who are you talking to? Like, when you say that, like, who are you thinking of?
I'm just thinking of that person that went to school, even at a young age, and you got picked on. Just anything about your body, whether it was something, your hair, your face, your body, like anywhere in your body, your eyes, your teeth, your skin, underweight, overweight. Like, how many kids get picked on? Kids are so mean. Like, and you take that through life. And it could push you into something positive, or it could pull you into something negative. And for me, it did both. At a certain point in my life, it pulled me into something negative and accepting and tolerating relationships that I didn't deserve, because I thought, because I was so big and because my ass was fat, that I would not like that relationship that I got into the first time, the second, the third time. That was it. Like it was that or it was nothing. So I might as well have whatever was given to me. And you end up settling for less than you deserve. So my next one is I am worthy of love and respect, but it starts with me. I got to love and respect myself in order to set the precedence on how people are going to treat me. So that's who I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of it. So if you've ever felt that way, this book is for you. It's about uplifting yourself and changing the story, changing your damn story.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, right? That I was talking to a friend last night who I want to introduce you to. His name's Eureka. He was on RuPaul's Drag Race. He's a big drag queen, right? And one of the things he does, and he talks about, he's very large, and he talks about how, and he was bullied a lot, and how culture seems to even do this thing where they're like, oh, I'm worried about your health, but they're really not.
No, they're not. That's just an excuse to be mean and poke at you.
Exactly. They're not, no one's really worried, and they're like, oh, well, that can't be healthy. And he's like, I can do the splits and do kicks. So what's your point? And it's just interesting how, like you're talking about that, just people carry later in their life that damage and those wounds and that story where it's not real, and but it's not talked about that often, it's
because if you do, you're shamed about it. And one of the things, it's so good that you brought up the weight. I mean, I've been guilty of it. And that's something that I learned through doing, writing, working on this book. I learned, and that's one of my quotes, like the girl self-esteem issues right there. And one of my quotes on the back, and this is something that I learned, it says, the person you were yesterday was on a journey to get you where you are today. Remember, you are just as beautiful in your before as you are in your after. And that is one of the lessons that I learned, because when I was 420 pounds, I was thinking, I had some amazing moments at 420 pounds. Everybody makes it seem like when my story got out and went viral, they make it seem like I was this depressed person. Yes, I had depression at points. It wasn't consistent. I don't think it ever is consistent. I think we have highs and lows, but throughout the journey, even at 380, 350, as my weight was going down all the way to 175, even at 175, there was moments I was miserable because I was on, there was moments that I was miserable because it got to a point that at 420, you're too damn fat, too damn big. You can't do anything. And yes, I couldn't fit into certain things. And the motivation to lose weight wasn't anything other than to have longevity and vitality, because I wanted to get on a bike. I wanted to go after my kids and not have to pay someone to be there and take care of them when they're my kids. And throughout the process, I get down to 175, and it's like, I would be told, hey, you're still too fat. Your hips are too big. Lose weight. And I'm like, there you are, the mean kids from school. Like, I remember when you were younger. 175, I've lost so much weight, and I'm still being told to still lose weight. And then I was ashamed now to plus size people everywhere because I had lost the weight. No longer did I represent that. And I'm like, and that was the biggest learning lesson, that it's not a before and after, it's everything in between, that there's amazing moments to live, and there's moments to cherish, and there's ups and downs. And as long as we're living, there will be ups that we celebrate and downs that we learn lessons from. And if I could empower people to not look at before and after as something good and bad, it's just a journey that's been taken. And, if I base my happiness on the scale, I've learned that my weight is lightest when I first wake up and I go to the bathroom. I'm lighter there. Midday, I'm heavier. At nighttime, I'm heavier. And then we start that cycle all over again the next day, and we don't know where we're going to end. So it's no longer based off of weight. It's just based off of health and vitality. I'm just going to take care of me.
Yeah.
And I'm okay, girl. And I'm plus size. And I'm okay. I love my body. I got curves.
Yeah. I think what the message is, it's all about self-love. It's the irony is as if people who are in great shape are happier. You and me both know that there's no comparison of it, but there's this implication, right? Like even that, like, unless you are in entertainment or whatever, like, you have to be a joke, or you can't be taken seriously if you are super in shape. And it's ridiculous. I mean, it's almost like, who created these?
I know exactly. Thank you.
So weird.
It's so weird because I mean, I remember like being 175 And that was like the lightest weight that I got. Like, I got the tummy tuck, and I got the tummy tuck and that's another thing. And I talk about that. I got the tummy tuck because I had skin upon skin that I had to be spanked up, and I still have to be spanked up because I still have more skin removal to do. It wasn't about, oh, I want to have a flat stomach. No, I just don't want to have rashes and the smell, underneath the skin. And the learning process is love your body, because even after you get surgery, there's still a scar there. There's no perfection. The cellulite is still here. I got hips, I got curves. And when it comes down to, when am I going to learn just to love me? When am I going to enjoy my own presence? When am I going to be okay with me? And if I'm going to base my happiness off of the criticism and the feedback that I'm getting from everybody else, then I'm never going to be happy. At some point, I have to just say, you know what? That doesn't serve me. That's your story. It's not going to become my truth. You know what? Thank you, God, for allowing me to breathe. Thank you for allowing me to birth another baby. Thank you for allowing me to live this moment. And you know what? You've given me another day with fresh air. I still have purpose. Let me focus on something bigger than my hips. Let me focus on something bigger than my cellulite. Let me focus on something bigger than my weight loss. What can we do? And it's about self-love. That's the lesson within it all. Self-love for you. And when you learn to love yourself, then everything starts transforming, because life, where the mind goes, the body follows. It's just, that's the reality. Wherever your mind goes, your body will follow. The decisions will follow based off of your thoughts. And if you're living in chaos,
and how do you do that? How do you ignite your self-love battery?
You know what? By taking care of myself. I think the most important thing is, I have learned that it's not about exercise. It's about doing things that I love. And I think that's where you and I share a lot of commonalities, about listening to great music, getting up and dancing, changing the atmosphere in my mind, learning to quiet that negative voice that we all have, that we self-sabotage, that, really starts getting louder and louder if we allow it to. And in the moment that I start criticizing myself, like, oh, you know what? I look, I don't, you know what? I'm not going to wear that dress until I lose 10 pounds. We all go through those moments. You know what? Saying, no, I'm worthy of wearing that dress now, and I'm going to look fabulous. And you know what? I'm going to put some great music on, and I'm going to affirm in the morning when I wake up that I am worthy of love and respect, that I have everything that I need, that I'm faithfully guided, that I love myself, that I love my body. And then I'm going to be grateful for it. Body, thank you for walking. Thank you for carrying me. Thank you for allowing me to do things. Thank you for the movement. Allowing to be thankful. I think gratitude really changes and shifts your perspective on everything.
So you really got into a practice of gratitude and gratitude lists and being grateful all the way around.
All the way around.
I wanted to ask you, being a Latina woman and also being, I don't know what the proper piece would it be, multicultural, but my question to you is there a different, in terms of like culture? I know every culture you can't overgeneralize, but in terms of like American culture and Latin culture, with some of this talk around self-esteem or self-love, do you find it's any different in terms of like how open people are to the dialogue, or that they want to hear the dialogue, or is it all the same?
I think everybody wants to hear the dialogue. I just feel like nobody has had the courage to really start and say, let me start with myself. This is who I am. Let me be authentic, because you know how difficult it can be to be courageous and say, put it all out there. Why? Because we're so afraid of criticism. We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of how people are going to change, how the perspective is going to change, of thoughts that, they have this image of us that we live by. And God forbid that I tell them that, you know what, I am that person. I am this wonderful, bold, courageous woman, but I am also this bold, courageous woman that at one time was ashamed of her past, that overate, that tolerated an abusive relationship, that didn't feel worthy of love, that felt into depression, that got extremely sick. To let people know the things that I've gone through, God forbid that I do that, because now they're not going to look at me with the same maybe love and respect, or maybe they're going to think that I'm crazy, or maybe they're going to think that I'm broken, or, they're going to just have a different thought of me, or I might lose that relationship if I'm honest about what I've been through. And I think creating this creates a compassion as well. to stop judging people when they go through something and start listening and be an invitation to really just lend an ear and hear what someone's going through. Because at the core, people want to be loved. They want to be celebrated. They want to be accepted. They want to feel a part of. And in the moment that we start criticizing that, we start pushing them away. And I no longer want to be a part of that. I want to be someone like, hey, talk to me. I'm here to listen. I know what you're feeling because I've gone through it. And if you're here to criticize, that's not a reflection of me. That's something that's triggered in you. You have an issue with my story that hurt you so bad. What did you go through that you haven't been honest with yourself? So we got to walk in honesty.
I love that. Yeah. And it's interesting how, and I love how you just put it, when you put it on other people, it's like, well, what did you go through? Because there's so many different ways to look at anything. And it's like, why put the energy towards something that ultimately, when you're negative or critical of someone, you don't feel good selfishly, but then you're going to go put it out there. And it's, and I would say a lot of people who do probably have low self-esteem.
They do. And they don't admit it. They won't admit it. They'll get defensive. When someone gets defensive, I think that's a big red flag to say there's something going on. Like this triggered some kind of pain or a memory, or why are they so defensive? And I've just learned I just don't take that. I just in love and I gracefully close the door. I just don't entertain that. And I don't allow it, to hurt me anymore, because before, when I remember, and I've talked about this before, I remember being on Face the Truth on stage. And I remember the first time that I said that I had been married and divorced 3 times. And the people, how they laughed. Like there were some people that they laughed, and how I was looked at. And they're like, you think that's enough? And I remember like automatically, like how everything shifted. And I remember just standing there and I took it in, and for a second, like it made me think throughout the day, wow, I said something because I wanted to connect with someone, not that I'm, not in a way of shame, not in a way of saying I've been married this many times. No, it's just this is what I've been through. And I just want you to understand, I know talking to someone on the other stage, someone who's really seeking help and is so ashamed about being divorced, for the second time and not knowing what to do with that. And I just remember, wow, if people react that way, how many people are closed off? And how many people avoid relationships because they're afraid to talk about things that they've gone through? Or how many people just avoid the subject matter in all itself, whether it's relationships or failure in business or failure in parenting? Like how many times do we avoid that? And we just want someone to connect to, someone to talk to. So I think now more than ever, we're going to start the conversation, because it's a reality that lots of human beings are living.
Yeah. And it's a reality where there's this idea that someone with low self-esteem is just huddled in a ball, right? Like hiding. But low self-esteem is running all over everyone you meet, connect with, talk to. And it's really an opportunity that, I love that message around, lifting other people up. And it's an esteemable thing to do, to actually lift other people up, right?
What? I think when you could just sit there and listen to someone without judging them, and not automatically wanting to give them advice. Sometimes all we want is just to be heard. Like, just listen to me. I need to get this off my chest and just say what I'm feeling and tell you what I've gone through. And I think when someone just the act of listening, presently listening to someone, is so therapeutic and healing, that when you're able to extend that to someone, it does such an amazing thing in your relationship. It really transforms relationships.
So birthing of this book was, how much did it feel like a mental birth?
God, I feel like it felt like a mental and emotional, physical birth. Going through this, there was moments that I'm like, yes, like I get to write about this. I'm so excited. And then there was other moments that I'm like, there was moments that I literally would be on the phone and I'd start crying, because I remember it, and going into it to be able to describe that takes you back. But also I'm grateful for that, because it allowed not only for a therapeutic reaction, but just a really of understanding the pain that I went through. Because I feel sometimes in life we go and we suppress things, and they manifest in our life in different, whether for me, I suppressed so much that it manifested it in a physical, like cyst in my brain. I got sick. because I shut down. I didn't talk. I didn't vocalize. I was ashamed. I was in so much pain that I internalized that. And I feel that when we suppress so many of those emotions, eventually it'll catch up, whether it's in relationships and business, or with our kids as our parenting frustrations. Physically, it will manifest somehow. And I think that's why it's so important to be able to, for me to be able to have gone through this process of birthing this book, because it allowed me to say, all right, these are things that I go through. When, as I get older, life will have me go up, life will have me go down. It's just part of life. I think I will have better tools to be able to deal with different situations, so I could really let go of that energy.
And I'm curious, being a fellow author, and titles are such a thing, right? Like, I'm curious in the process, like my titles always come last. And
Same.
And at first, what was the working title?
At first, I don't even remember the first working title, because the name of the book really came towards the end, and it was really a team effort of putting the name together.
So it was
and
almost like you were creating at first. You were just like creating.
Yes, it was creating. It was just really like literally, all right, these are the chapters. This is what I want to focus on. And then the writing of the chapters. And I knew what the chapters were, and I knew what the lessons were. Now I have to go back into those dark moments and go through exactly what I felt, what I went through. And through that, there was even more revelation of more lessons. There was moments that I'm like, wow, I went through that. But if I would have gotten what I asked for in that moment, it would have hurt so much more. And there's just these revelations that sometimes we don't get. Like, that was one of the biggest ones for me, that I look back and I'm like, wow, I prayed so much for this to happen, that if I would have gotten it, where would have my life been today? Thank you, God, for not allowing me to go through that. Thank you for not giving it to me when I asked you, because I was not ready. And also understanding that when taking personal responsibility was a big one. Whew. Taking personal responsibility can be so hard for sometimes, because you don't want to admit that you're wrong. You don't. It's so easy to say, that person did that to me, or how dare he do that to me? And at some point you have to say, all right, Rosie, you went through 3 marriages. After the first one, okay, you learned your lesson. The second one, you did it again. And after that, now that decision, it was a choice. Like, that becomes a choice. What do you have to learn from that? Taking personal responsibility, not just completely blaming the other person, because it takes 2 to be in a relationship. So, and that for me, there's a lot of learning through the book, even more so.
Well, and what chapter for you is like refreshing, where you're like, oh, I love this part, because sometimes in books you have to break it down into like segments or parts of it or whatever, where there's certain elements where you were just like, ooh, it's like a cold shower with lemon juice squirt on my face,
Yeah. Oh my God. I think for me, the moments that I talk about, one of my favorite moments that I still crack up, and then I'm like, I can't believe I put that in there. Talking about my coach, my modeling coach. Here I am at, between 380 pounds, 420 pounds, having this like modeling coach who's telling me to like go get waxed and like stand up straight, like stand up taller so you could look, thinner and longer, and just going through that and just going through those. And there's moments that I would just laugh so hard. I'm like, oh my God, Rosie, I can't believe you went through that. Like, I can't believe you went through that. So going through the whole process of the Miss Plus America pageant, and just these moments where being the weight that I was, that everybody looks at like, she must have been so miserable. Those were just one of the moments that I thought, wow, I did have really good moments that I forgot about. Being between 380 pounds, 420 pounds, and going into this pageant out in Louisiana, traveling with my family and my daughter. So thankful that my daughter got that. And then arriving and seeing these beautiful plus size women, every size you could imagine, really big on the smaller scale, and then just seeing them just glow, smart, beautiful, dressed up in heels, and I'm like, where have they been my whole life? Here I am in Vegas, and where have they been in my whole life? And just remember that I was so inspired and then walking on that runway, rocking on that runway at a size 34 and just feeling like, I want to model. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I want to model. So that for me was just one of those moments of like, I love this chapter. I just love it because there's just so many thoughts that at 420 pounds that I was just this miserable human being completely.
And in terms of that part of, because I imagine that, that's a whole community. And then there's also the community of people who've lost a lot of weight, right?
Yeah.
And there's all these, do you like, where, because you can tap into so many different, I mean, really at the end of the day, it's about self-love. Like the other stuff is just,
self-love.
Is the exterior stuff, right? And
yeah.
But I have to imagine too, it's pretty interesting when you end up at like plus size, Miss America. Like, how did you end up doing that?
Oh my God. So that's one of the funny stories. So just really short, really quick. So obviously in pageantry, you have your state and then you go to nationals, right? So here I am, someone presents me with this opportunity like, Rosie, there's Miss Plus America. And I'm like, in my mind, all right, I had just gotten over having a cyst in my brain. Here I am finding my way back to health. I'm going between 380 pounds, 420 pounds. Like here I am, like trying to find myself and like starting to like take care of me and just wear clothing that I would design. And even though I was bigger, I was like, I was excited about just designing and just wearing clothes and presenting myself and just in this powerful, beautiful way that I had gone through hell and back. And I remember I get this invitation and I'm going to do this. And I knew nothing about pageantry. I knew nothing about public speaking. I just knew nothing. And I sign up and I go to this dinner. I show up and of course I won the state title. And the reason I won state title because nobody else had signed up. And here I am. I don't care. I'm going to own this moment. I'm the only one that signed up. So they gave me the crown. And I was like, all right, I'm going to own it. It's a moment that like, I'm like, all right, girl, you were the only one that signed up for this. It's okay. You're going to nationals. I'm just going to I'm going to run with it. And there was no shame in that. I'm like wearing my crown, wearing my title. I go to nationals and here I am. I find myself. So literally was an invitation. Someone sent it to me via Facebook. I find all these, they start telling me about this, emails and stuff like that about it. I started looking more into it. It caught my attention. And here I am. I sign up, won the state title because nobody else signed up. And then it takes me into, and this is what I love about it, that you never know where a simple invitation, a simple opportunity, if you learn to say yes to it, will take you. And it's also nice to be able to have the strength to say no to things that you don't want or deserve. So it was an opportunity that turned into self-discovery, finding my passion, finding my strengths, and just connecting with other beautiful human beings that had nothing to do on a connection. It was just all about connecting with people that were just empowering. And they just owned who they were and they loved themselves. And that for me was just mind blowing because here I am at that age and never had that in high school, never had that in elementary school, never had it in middle school. And it was until I was older that I found that energy and I fell in love with it.
So it looks like we lost Coach Mike's video. I can still hear him, but I can't see you. So, no, there you are. There you are. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I wonder, Rosie, if you would read for us just a little bit, like a few excerpts. And then we actually have a few questions from the audience that I'd like to ask you. So I'll come back. Yeah, now we can see you again.
Perfect.
All right. So I'm going to read. All right. It's, oh my God, there's so many parts that I absolutely love about the book, but I'm going to read something that I love that was about unconditional forgiveness becomes transformational forgiveness. And it says, this is important. There are different types of forgiveness. We all understand what it means to forgive the person who apologizes to us. But there are many times in life when we will never receive any apologies. Many, if not all of us, have been in situations where we have been vulnerable, giving our hearts and our trust, and then ending up being emotionally body punched and totally slammed to the ground. We don't fully understand what happened. We don't know what we did wrong, and we will probably never get any answers. I learned that it's essential to be able to forgive and move on, even when there are no apologies or answers. You have to accept that nothing will ever be resolved. However, your sanity is at stake. So you have to let go of the hurt and move on. You have to stop thinking about hurtful people or situations. Being able to forgive even when there are no apologies and your heart is still filled with unanswered questions can be transformative. Yes, you can create a new and better life. You are giving this kind of forgiveness for your own good because you are able to be more focused on creating peace in your own life. Plato was an ancient Greek philosopher who lived in the 5th century. Here's a quote that's often attributed to him: "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle." An affirmation: I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. I choose to forgive and let you go with love. And today, I choose to love myself for everything that I am. Take a deep breath, breathe out, and let it go. It's time to close the doors to the past. Stand up and create a new truth for yourself. Are you ready to lead your best life? Because the best is yet to come. It's your responsibility to fulfill your dream. Nothing can stop your destiny. I could do all things through him who gives me strength. And that's one of my many favorite parts, because it's about, at some point in your life, being able to have the peace of letting go, even if you don't have the answers. Being able to forgive for your own sanity, for your own well-being, so you could just move on with your life and find what really makes you happy. And I think that's exactly where the healing, because healing doesn't happen until you let it go, until you close the door and really understand that sometimes there's nothing you could do. The past is gone and we have to be able to close that door, but it takes practice. It doesn't happen overnight, and you have to allow yourself to breathe through it and understand that it's okay to feel the pain. But the difference is you don't stay there. You just let it go and you send love. You send love, because what you put out in this world comes right back to you. And it's just a reminder that we're worthy of love, but we have to do the internal work. We have to do it on our own. Nobody can do it for us. It's a personal journey that we must each go through.
So here is a question for both of you. How do you lead a more authentic life? What do you think it is that creates authenticity?
I think what creates authenticity is being honest. Being honest without the worry of people's criticisms, of people's thoughts about you, people's stories about you. It's about being honest with yourself and being okay with knowing who you are. Being okay with getting uncomfortable and creating a new story. But at the end of the day, it's about not tolerating or accepting anybody else's story about yourself and making it your own. It's just about knowing who you are and accepting this package the way that you come and everything that comes with it, and just saying, look, this is who I am and I love me. And if you don't love me, that's okay. But I love me. And if you love me, I celebrate it. If you don't, I wish you well. It's okay. My happiness isn't dependent on your validation.
Yeah, and I would say, Rosie pretty much summed it all up with the honesty and being honest with yourself, and being around people that bring out your authenticity. So that one of the reasons I agreed to do this, and I also said to Rosie, ask me to do the thing, was because Rosie brings that out of me. So when people bring that out of you, you try to put energy into it and invest in it. And so that's the other thing for me, is like, I'll invest in things that it's a feeling, like, when things feel right. And when you're like, oh yeah, I can totally be myself, and there's not any worries. And Rosie has an ability to do that with people.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mike. I really do, because I feel like the moment that we met right on stage, like, it was just, it was a click, and it was just, this is who we are. But
Yeah.
it is what it is, just who we are. And I think what you said is so important, to have relationships and to acknowledge those relationships, that you could be yourself, that you don't have to think twice before you act. You don't have to think twice before you speak. You just are who you are, and they love and accept you, and they're not trying to transform you, change you. They're just loving on who you are. Is so important. It is so important, because if someone's constantly trying to change you, transformation is a personal decision, not one that should be forced upon you.
Preach.
Preach. So what would you hope that people get from this book? What was your goal when writing it?
The courage to be honest with themselves, the inspiration to dare to dream, the energy to go after what they deserve, and the strength to be able to say no, hell no, to what they don't want, not to be scared, not to be ashamed of their past, to be proud of who they become, to want to do the work to heal, and to have faith that everything is as it should be, and that they will attract love. They will attract their heart's desires the moment that they make this decision to start doing the inner work, the inner healing. I think the biggest one of all is faith. Having faith that the sun will come out, that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and that there's a purpose to the bad moments, that it happens to everyone, that we're all human beings, and that we all have ups and downs, and that it's easy to celebrate the good moments, the victorious moments. Celebration, we talk about it with pride. We jump up and down, we cheer. But that as human beings, we all have dark moments, and that you could view those dark moments just as a lesson, that it's painful. But I promise you, when you're able to look at it with the eyes of, what can I learn? What is this teaching me? There's a lesson for you to become better. And that in turn will push you forward in a direction that you never thought, when you can empower yourself to say, I went through that, but I learned, and this is what I learned. And that's where the power's at.
Amazing. So it looks like we lost Coach Mike again, but he might come back. Yeah.
In case he doesn't, Coach Mike is a beautiful human being. I love and respect him, his authenticity, his open and willingness to, I mean, you saw it at the beginning.
You can tell.
You can tell he didn't give up. So many of us could use a moment that something doesn't work and just give up.
Absolutely.
When you really want to be of love and of service, you just try until you get through. And that's something that I just have to say thank you, Coach Mike. Thank you for your love and support. And thank you for not giving up and being there. I really appreciate it.
Well, he was here for the majority, for all of it.
Yeah, so
I think that was fantastic. So here's someone saying, Rosie, you are so inspirational. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I don't know who it is because they're not identified, but they're, okay. This is a friend of yours that is sending you all this love. And then one more question about, is your strength, you talk a lot about faith. Is your strength faith-based, and how did you come in? I don't know, how did you connect to that and bring it into your life and to help you with these issues?
I really feel that faith has played such faith. For me, it's God. God has gotten me out of some really tough times. I mean, facing, assisting my brain in the unknown. It is the faith that I had, the faith that my mom taught me of saying, speak up, ask for help. If you have no one to ask, speak out loud. God is listening. If you don't believe in God, I respect that. It is my faith and my faith in God that has brought me out. If you believe in the universe and the angels, whatever you believe, just the act of speaking and saying, help me, I need help, I can no longer. Your spirit breathes and you're able to open up and just surrender. And just, I could just say that throughout my journey, there was moments that I didn't see it, but God took me to a path where my dad taught me of saying, you could cry along the way, just keep fighting for your life. Your voice matters. My mom said the simplest thing you could do is ask for help. If you have no one, just say it out loud. Someone's listening. I promise you, God is listening. And the moment you start seeing those answers come to be, the doctor showing up, the treatments showing up, finding answers, knocking on doors, one door closing and understanding, all right, I'm not meant to walk through that, but then the window opens. That for me is nothing more than God just saying, I'm with you, have faith, don't give up. I know you're tired. You will have more energy. And I promise you that the painful moments, they're just moments that we have something to learn. And it allows us to have compassion and connect with other human beings. So we could be an invitation of life of saying, don't give up. And it's those moments that have given me the faith and the strength to keep going. It's those moments that in the middle of darkness, light shows up and all right, there's light. There's an answer. It's those moments of hope that keep me going. And all I know is that faith has helped me to be authentic and open. And I just pray that this book is an energy that you're attracted to, that will bring healing to your life, that will bring wisdom through the things that I went through, that you will find hope to keep going, hope to wanting to find love again in your life, hope to doing the healing so you could find your own happiness and your own peace and your well-being, hope and strength to be able to have the courage to say what you're going through, to have the courage to pick up the phone and call someone that you haven't talked to in several years, or also the hope or the faith or the strength to be able to let go of the past that maybe is holding you back from living your best life, and letting go of the pain or wanting to do that inner work and look into those dark places that sometimes we're afraid to look inward. We're just being honest with yourself. Sometimes we're afraid to be honest.
I think that is a beautiful note for us to close the program. I think a lot of people are going to connect to this book, and we're delighted that we are going to be selling it at Books and Books. I'll remind everyone watching that you can order a copy by just pressing on the green button at the bottom of the screen. And I want to thank everyone who's joined us tonight and everyone who's watching from everywhere, and especially you, Rosie, for sharing of yourself so generously and for being such an inspiration for all of us. I hope that we'll see you in person sometime, you and Coach Mike, and that we can recreate this maybe at one of our bookshops or at Miami Book Fair sometime next year. I wish you the best of luck with the Spanish edition. I know it comes out in December, and I see the cover in the back there.
Yes, right there, you guys. The Girl with Self-Esteem Issues.
And it's called La Latina
La Latina con baja autoestima. So, you guys, mucho orgullo de poder presentarlo en inglés, pero también en español para toda mi gente latina, porque es tan importante darle el respeto y la honra a mi gente latina, porque ha sido parte de quien soy. Esas raíces latinas son bien importantes y no me olvido de mi gente. So, La Latina con baja autoestima para toda mi gente. Comparto lo mismo, inspiración para que le echen ganas y no se den por vencidos. And the Girl with Self-Esteem Issues in English. Just sharing some love and inspiration.
Rosie, you're a beautiful human being. Thank you for sharing your journey with us, and stay that way. Keep writing, keep working, keep spreading the love, and thank you very much for being with us tonight. And we thank Coach Mike as well, wherever he is out there. We thank him for being with us.
Thank you.
And then until the next time, thank you. Good night.
Gracias, hasta luego. Good night.
Hasta luego.